Okay. Welcome everyone to the part 2 of our Judicial Forum. We're going to be speaking with several candidates this evening who could not join our first forum, which was jam-packed with candidates. We're going to introduce ourselves in a few moments. So tonight we're going to be meeting with several candidates, and each candidate will have an opportunity to speak and to talk about their candidacy for Supreme Court. They'll have about 10 minutes to speak, and then we'll rotate to the following candidate. To introduce, good evening, everyone. My name is Julio Peña. I am the district leader in the 51st Assembly District, representing Sunset Park, Red Hook, and parts of Gowanus, Park Slope, Bay Ridge. And I'm going to pass it to my colleague in the north, to my district leader colleague, Jesse.
Thank you, Julio. Good to be with you all. Great to be here tonight. Thank you to all of our judicial candidates, and happy to be here with my fellow district leaders tonight. I'm Jesse Pierce from the 52nd neighborhoods, downtown Brooklyn, Prospect Heights, Borum Hill, Cobble Hill, Gowanus, Park Slope, that corner of Brooklyn. And I will popcorn it over to Shaquana.
Hi, everyone. I'm Shaquana Boykin, district leader for Assembly District 57. That's Fort Greene, Clinton Hill, western parts of Crown Heights, and Bed-Stuy and Prospect Heights. Really excited to be here. Second part, again, first part was very jam-packed. So I would pass it to Emil.
Hi, everyone. My name is Emil Bazil. I'm district leader in Assembly District 50, which includes Greenpoint, Williamsburg, Fort Greene, and a bit of Clinton Hill. And we're so happy to have a second part 2 forum where we talk to more judges and learn more about them and who they are as people. And I'm going to pass it to my co-leader.
Hi, everybody. I'm Christina Naplatarski, female district leader for the 50th Assembly District. So representing the communities of Greenpoint, Williamsburg, a little bit of Fort Greene and Clinton Hill, like Emil said. Really excited to be here this evening as we're wrapping up part 2 of our Judicial Forum. Thanks to everyone who's tuning in and to all the candidates and my fellow leaders. And I'll pass it to Assembly Member and District Leader Maritza Davila.
Hi, today my role is district leader. It was my first role before assembly, so I just want to be the district leader today. But I thank you all for inviting me as well to this forum. I think it's important that we continue to do these types of forums just for educational purposes. And because we all need to know who the candidates are that are going to be servicing our communities. So thank you once again. I'm extremely happy to be here with you and listen to the judges. I'm gonna pass it on to Sammy. I'm sorry. I'm getting another call in, so I have to tune out for a couple of minutes, okay? 1 second.
Hi, everyone. Good night. Thank you for joining. My name is Sammy Nemir Olivares, the other district leader in Assembly District 53rd. We represent great parts of North Brooklyn, parts of Williamsburg, all East Williamsburg, and parts of Bushwick, and I'm very close to Christina's district as well. And we're very excited to hear from these candidates. We're very excited to hear from this candidate, and that we continue to hear, but to make sure that we have qualified, fair judges in our justice system in Brooklyn. So I hope that we could continue to learn today. Thank you.
And
I
District
think-
Leader Jones.
Hi, good evening. District Leader Anthony Jones representing
A neighbor,
Brownsville.
Pass it to Mr. Jones.
Yes,
Thank you.
indeed. Brownsville, Ocean Hill, East New York, Crown Heights, Best Side, East Flatbush, and I think I said it all. Thank you for inviting me. Excited to be here. Looking forward to it. And welcome to all the candidates tonight. And thank you for inviting me again. Let's pass it over to Sammy Namir, AD 53.
Yeah.
Pass it back to
Thank
you.
you.
Pass
Thank
to
you.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
So
see you.
as our candidates are joining the Zoom, let's give them a few moments as they join and get acclimated. I can once again introduce the outline for this evening. So we're going to go one by one through each candidate. They'll have about 10 minutes to per candidate. They'll have about 2 minutes to introduce themselves, talk about why they're running, and they'll after that we'll entertain some questions from leaders based on the questionnaire that they submitted. And thank you to the candidates that submitted a questionnaire. We really appreciate it. And then after the 10 minutes, we'll rotate to the next candidate. And since there's only one group today, we'll just go through the 5 judges that are with us this evening. And we're going to go in order from the candidates that RSVP today. So we're going to start with Stephen Berzio. So Stephen, why don't you go ahead, give us an introduction, and then we'll take it from there.
Fantastic. Can you hear me okay?
We sure can.
All right, great. So my name's Stephen Berzio. I've been an attorney in New York City for over 17 years. I'm currently principal law clerk for a state Supreme Court judge. I live in Brooklyn. Prior to being a principal law clerk for a state Supreme Court judge, I was a not-for-profit attorney for about 7 years. For 6 years, I represented tenants in housing court. For some of that time, I was also the program director of the anti-eviction program, which meant that I supervised generally about 3 or 4 attorneys and programmatic staff, tenant organizers, and administrative staff. It was an incredible experience. Generally represented tenants and worked with tenants in the neighborhoods of Williamsburg and Bushwick. And it was, my first real litigation experience, and it was eye-opening. This was spending essentially every day in housing court, representing lower income tenants, was also representing New York City Housing Authority tenants, both in housing court and in 250 Broadway in administrative hearings. It was a very eye-opening experience to see how people, unfortunately, were often mistreated, with gentrification and some of the aggressive tactics that landlords would often engage in, turning off heat and hot water, engaging in sort of other practices, trying to evict tenants because they were rent controlled or rent stabilized. So I did that for about 6.5 years. My last year at the not-for-profit, I represented homeowners in state Supreme Court who were facing foreclosure. So for about the last 10 years, I've been engaged in Supreme Court level work. And during my time as a principal law clerk, we've been assigned to many different parts. Before that, like I said, when I worked at not-for-profit, I did foreclosure work in the Supreme Court. But when I started the Supreme Court, we were first assigned to the city part. That's informally the part where if you're suing the city of New York or the transit, for, basically anything that involves the city. So a lot of times it's sidewalk trip and falls or accidents involving, say, a police car, or even more complex, more serious, matters like allegations of police misconduct. They all go there. So that was a fairly busy part. We had 2 motion days a week. We also had to deal with discovery conferences. After that assignment, the next year, we went to the mental hygiene part. It's also known as the civil commitment part. I watched the forum last week. There were some other judges who have similar parts. I think Judge Demick has a mental hygiene part in the criminal court, but this is civil commitment. You have hospitals making applications to keep people who are in their psychiatric facilities for longer, to continue to treat them. You have applications for warrants from family members. Sometimes, if a family member is concerned that, say, their son or daughter is a danger to themselves or to others, they'll come in and they'll make an application for a warrant, and the person will be brought in. They'll receive counsel, and then the judge would have to have made a determination as to whether that person would be held in a psychiatric facility for a short amount of time to be examined. After that, we were assigned for 2 years to a matrimonial part, divorce, custody issues, property distribution was completely new to me, as were those other assignments. And it was a great experience. I learned all about family law, matrimonial law, helped to write, 60, 80, 100-page decisions relating to child custody matters, issues relating to property distribution. And after that, and for the last 5 years, we've been in an IAS part. It's a general trial part. So we deal with trials, civil trials, often negligence matters, maybe like a motor vehicle case or a contract dispute. And during the last 9 years as a law clerk, I've probably helped my judge to write about 800 or 900 decisions. So that's anywhere from a 3 or 4 page decision on a summary judgment motion to a post-trial memorandum decision on a matrimonial matter, or on, say, a non-jury trial, such as a partnership dispute. We've had some of those. So it's been an incredible experience. Like I said, I live in Brooklyn. I'm a dad. My kids go to public school here in Park Slope. I've been involved in my community. I was on Community Board 6 for 4 years. I also, because of my initial employment in Bushwick, still consider that my second home. And I try to volunteer when I can. Obviously, the last year it's tied me close to home. My wife is a nurse administrator at New York Methodist. My kids go to local public schools. I've been involved with the We Are All Brooklyn Fellowship, if some of you are familiar with that, through the JCRC. I've been, what else have I done? Well, I guess I should say, I think my experience for the last 10 years, with civil court matters makes me capable and qualified to be a Supreme Court judge. I was found to be qualified by the Democratic Party Screening Committee. And again, I thank the district leaders for conducting this forum. Like I said, I watched last week's forum and I thought it went really well. And again, I want to thank you for that. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Any questions from leaders? Shaquana Boykin.
Hi, how is everyone? Thank you, Stephen. I had a question about, I'm always asking like technical questions. Like how many times have you ran for this seat? And the second part of that, what makes you the best candidate for that seat? And go.
Sure. So I've never run for Supreme Court before. I conducted a campaign for civil court last year. I was not successful. You know, democracy is a wonderful thing, but it means that one person wins and one person doesn't. I think that I am qualified for this position because of the in-depth work that I've done over the last 10 years. I've done a broad range of work. You know, these days attorneys are often asked or called to specialize in one area. Sometimes attorneys will do, you know, just matrimonial work or just foreclosure work or just personal injury work. And I've done a good number of, I've worked in all those areas, and I've worked in those areas in a substantive way. Like I said, I helped to draft custody decisions that were complex. I've worked on labor law matters, you know, what's otherwise referred to as the scaffold law, with folks who are injured in construction sites. I've written 20-page decisions relating to that. I've really gotten my hands dirty on these issues that judges have to address as soon as they take the bench. So I'm familiar with the issues. Like I said, I've been doing it for the last 10 years, nonstop, no interruptions. But thank you for your question.
Thank you.
And we'll take one more question from Leader Jones.
Yes, sir. So I'm always interested in supporting and putting great people on the bench. But one of the things that I do before I support anyone, I like to always know whether or not you would be willing to walk the district with me and meet the people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm taking that as an invitation. I'll take you up on that invitation. Yeah, no, I think, you know, I think one of the things that I was very fortunate to have happen as part of my legal career was to begin my legal career working in a community. So I wasn't, and not to say that there's anything wrong with folks who say work at a not-for-profit that's located in Lower Manhattan or downtown Brooklyn. But for me, I feel like I was very fortunate that I was part of a community-based organization. So, you know, I feel like it's a very special and a very important thing for not just judges, but folks who live in New York City to understand that New York City is a very diverse and wonderful place. And it is, you know, for me, it's an incredible place. It's, you know, millions of people who live together, sometimes in harmony, sometimes not, but they all have their own stories. So yeah, I'd love to. It'd be a fantastic day. Thank you for the invitation. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much,
Of course.
Stephen, for participating.
Yeah.
So we're going to move on to our next candidate, Judge Cheryl Gonzalez.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for doing this forum. I'm happy to be here. To tell you a little bit about myself, I was born in Trinidad, and my grandparents are from Venezuela. I came to New York after high school, and I was the first person in my family to attend college, so I had to learn the city and navigate the educational system at the same time. I attended law school at CUNY Law School, and I worked full-time with the Division for Youth, what's called the Division for Youth at that time. I had 2 work experiences which shaped my interest in the law. And when I worked for a halfway house with former mental patients, we tried to unionize and they fired us all. At the Division for Youth, a lot of us were working in the position which was the civil service position, and the exam was not given for many years. When it was given, a lot of people did not pass, people who were performing the duties for many years. I did, but I signed on to a lawsuit challenging the exam as not being related to the job functions, and we were successful. And I began to realize, I'm sorry, I don't know what to do to brighten the screen here. Okay, that's better, right? I apologize. It's better, but they're not.
Can you bring that I'm sorry, because can you bring your light closer to you, or?
Maybe I can change positions. I'm here because I have a big window. When I sit in front of the window, you can't see me at all. But I can try to change positions.
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure that you knew that we couldn't
I
see
can't
you as a candidate.
I understand. I can't.
Okay.
Okay, so those 2 experiences really shaped my interest, because I realized that the law is a tool for change and it can bring positive change. Then I practiced in real estate and family law when I left law school, and I became a court attorney, which I was a court attorney in criminal, civil, and Supreme Court for 14 years. And in 2005, I was appointed to the Housing Court bench. In 2015, I became a supervising judge, so I'm still a supervising judge in Brooklyn Housing Court. I believe that the law can do a lot to improve people's lives if we see it that way, if we understand the power of the law. And I think the judges have great power to use the law to effect change and to do good for the goodwill of the community. For Supreme Court, I have been in housing court for 16 years. I enjoy housing court. I would like to expand my experience. I would like to be involved in more challenging areas of law, different challenges in the areas of law. And that's why I ask you to support me for Supreme Court.
Okay. I have questions.
Thank you so much. And questions from leaders, and I see Leader Davila. Go ahead.
Yes. Sorry. Cheryl, what district did you run from, or were you appointed?
I ran for civil court in 2011, and I ran a countywide race. I didn't win. I live in the 57th, and the appointment to housing court is an appointment to the citywide housing court, yes, made by the chief administrative judge.
So you do have experience running countywide. It's very tough, and so I admire you for that. It's a very difficult thing. And if I remember you, it was in 2011, right? Correct? Yeah. Was that with the help of county, or was that against the slate of county? This is just out of curiosity.
I did not have any help from county.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. And I see a hand up from Leader Boykin.
Hi, I hear you're in my district. Nice to see you. Immediately when you started talking about housing, I thought about all the housing organizing that I have done in Brooklyn, and noticing that there was only 2 housing courts for NYCHA residents or any residents to bring against landlords. And I realized, as just like a Black woman, no matter what role I hold, I'm always trying to show up for my community. So my question is, when you had the role of representing in housing court, still sticking to the law, but using your discretion, could you give an example, a quick example of how you deal with housing, I guess like the housing work that you've done?
Well, I mean, one thing I can point to right now is in my role as a supervising judge, one of the things I fought to do was to keep the night court open for people who work during the day and to have the ability to come in at night, so they don't have to take off from work and lose pay. In terms of being on the bench, the HP part is one of the most contentious parts in housing court. There's only one in each borough, and it is not a part that most judges care to sit in because they don't want to hear about the repairs. It's not pretty. You know, you see all kinds of things, photographs and videos of all kinds of conditions, which are horrendous in many cases. I sat in that part for 4 years, 2 years in Brooklyn and 2 years in Manhattan. And I enjoy it because I feel that that's where I was able to make a major difference in people's lives and getting work done in their apartments and getting their apartments up to standard.
Okay, thank you.
We have a question from Leader Pierce.
Yes, hi, hello, thank you for being with us. I was just taking a look at your questionnaire, and you mentioned what you felt like was the greatest obstacle to justice was access to the courts, legal services, and technology. I'm wondering if there's a specific example or case you might bring up that comes to mind when you think about the greatest obstacle to justice and how it impacted you or how it informed you in your career.
Well, I see the difference with the universal access to counsel that is now in place, which has been in place since maybe 2015, 2016. We started to roll out by zip code, so there were only a few zip codes, I think 5 zip codes pre-pandemic that were eligible for free legal services, the people who lived in those districts. And you could see the difference in the practice in those parts where tenants had attorneys as opposed to tenants who were representing themselves. Now, universal access to counsel is open to everyone, and we're working slowly to get people who had cases pre-pandemic, attorneys in every case, and also the new cases coming in, getting people hooked up with attorneys. But the quality of the litigation changes dramatically when there's an attorney involved, and it makes a difference for the tenants.
Got it, thank you.
And we have a question from Leader Jones.
No, I just want to compliment you, Judge Gonzalez, for the great work that I know you do, and I'm looking forward to your candidacy. I'm really looking forward to that. Keep up the great work that you've been doing.
Thank you so much.
Do we have other questions? Okay. Well, thank you so much, Judge Gonzalez. We very much appreciate you joining us this evening.
Thank you.
So next, we'll hear from Judge Lorna McAllister.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much
Good
for
evening.
inviting me. It's a pleasure to come this evening and to meet all of you. I don't know all of you, so I'm glad to be here to get that opportunity. I just want to start off by short version. First and foremost, I'm a wife and mother of 2 children who are of college age now, which is shocking to me. I'm the product of West Indian parentage. My parents were born in Jamaica, West Indies, but my siblings and I were born here. We grew up and we were born and raised in the Bronx, known as the Boogie Down Bronx. I attended Adlai Stevenson High School in the Bronx, and from there I attended Smith College in Northampton, Massachusetts. After college, I worked for a little while at American Express. I handled corporate travel for CBS Sports before deciding what I really wanted to do with my life. And I decided that law school is what I wanted to do. So I went on to attend Rutgers University School of Law. Thereafter, I began my professional legal career with a small plaintiff's personal injury firm in the Bronx. They're still in the Bronx, Belleville and Franzblau. And I worked there for a number of years with them, about 9 or 10 years, where I really learned a lot, about not only about the law and trying cases, but just how to navigate the court system. And so after a number of years there with them, I was offered an opportunity to become a court attorney and work as a court attorney. And that I took that job and I became the court attorney for Judge Honorable Robin Shears when she was elected in 2008. And she was assigned at that time to family court, because when you're elected, you sit where you're needed. And at that time, judges were needed in family court. So we were assigned to family court, where we sat in the custody and visitation part, handling custody and visitation matters. And we sat there for about 2 years until we were then reassigned back to civil court, where, of course, where she was elected. And we sat in civil court where we handled, civil court is broken up into different parts. And we handle commercial landlord tenant, small claims, no faults litigation, and what I call the pro se part, the part where primarily pro se litigants come with name changes. They come with motions, sometimes where they're being sued by Con Edison or National Grid and things of that nature. So we sat there for a while, and I sat with her for about a year and a half. After we were there, I was offered an opportunity to become a court attorney for Honorable Peter Sweeney, who is now a Supreme Court judge. At the time, he was an acting Supreme Court judge and formerly supervising judge of the civil court. And, I asked Judge Shea, I said, do you mind if I go over to Supreme and get some Supreme under my belt? And she said, listen, you do what you need to do for your career. And because at that time, I had in the back of my mind that being a judge was something that I found very interesting after having gone before so many of them while practicing. So I took the opportunity and I came over to Supreme Court and worked with Judge Sweeney. And we did the default part and we did some foreclosure motions as well. And so while I was with Judge Sweeney, that's when I decided that I wanted to try to move into becoming a judge, and I went for it, and I was elected in 2015 to the civil court. And upon being elected, I was assigned to the criminal court. And that was a wonderful experience. I had never done any criminal work in my life. But the training for the criminal court through the court system was superb. And I sat there and had a wonderful experience handling arraignments. And sometimes I was given the opportunity to cover the youth part, which was really the part of Judge Craig Walker. And when he was out, I got an opportunity to cover that part for him while he was either on vacation or whatever. And I had that was a wonderful experience sitting in that youth part and dealing with the youth. And sometimes I was able to cover the misdemeanor parts as well, and what they call the all-purpose parts, where the cases would go after arraignments. And so I sat in criminal court for about 2 years when I was then assigned to civil court. And in civil court, it was like going back home to civil court, because I had already sat there with Judge Sears for some time. So I knew all of the parts already. I knew how to maneuver the parts. I had experience with it. But now, of course, I was on the other side of the bench and sitting behind the bench and hearing the cases. And now I was making the decisions. But I had brought with me a wealth of experience from having been a court attorney, which really was extraordinary. And from there in 2019, sat there for about 2 years in civil court. And then in 2019, I was appointed acting Supreme Court judge. And I moved over to the Supreme Court building, where I have been sitting since January of 2020. I started out doing the individual assignment parts, doing just regular cases, doing trials. I did numerous trials here as well. And I also had an opportunity to cover the mental hygiene part for a couple of weeks for the judge who was out on leave for a little while. So I had an opportunity to do that as well. And then in May of last year, during COVID, I was asked if I would sit in the matrimonial part over here in Supreme. And that's where I have been sitting since May of last year, handling divorce matters, which also very often and predominantly entail dealing with custody and visitation matters, as well as equitable distribution of property. And that's where I'm currently presiding here in Supreme Court. My experience as a court attorney as well as a judge, as I said, has really been an exceptional one. When I think back on it, and I really didn't think about it until really I was filling out this questionnaire, I've actually sat in almost every court here except for surrogates court, which is a specialty of its own. But I have sat in every court and have had an opportunity to experience so much that it's really just extraordinary to me when I think about it. The opportunity has just been unreal. I love it. And that's why I want to continue as a full Supreme. I want to continue. I think I have made a difference being a judge. We know that not everyone prevails when they come to court. We understand. Even if they don't, I think that I do my very best to make sure that when people come in here, they're heard. I understand what they are trying to tell me, all of whatever they have to say. They know that I'm listening to them. I take into account whatever it is that they are telling me. And, I just want to continue in that capacity because people are coming. I have dealt with pro se, they call civil court the people's court, but to me, all of the courts are people's court because I've dealt with pro se people in every court that I've sat in matrimonial. Primarily people have attorneys, but I have a lot of people who are pro se because they can't afford the attorney or they just choose to represent themselves. So for me, all of the courts are the people's court. And I just want to continue in that role in doing what I do and doing what I love.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from leaders? Leader Davila?
Hello, Honorable McAllister.
How are you?
A question that I'm asking everyone. Did you run for this seat or were you appointed?
For my civil court seat, I ran, but I got what was called a backfill. So sometimes when judges who have done their 10 years and they are reelected, sometimes they are then elevated to Supreme. And so that seat.
We understand.
Open.
We understand.
I don't know if everybody, that's why I'm explaining.
I think they all understand that. They're all district leaders. They
I know.
Right. And this is the reason why I'm bringing it up is because not every like I have to tell all the district leaders, not everyone is Supreme Court material, right? So if you have not been in civil court, it's kind of hard to elevate someone,
Correct.
Although I've seen it all. I've seen it all. I've seen people go into Supreme Court without even, I don't even know, don't even remember their last name. But
it's called going from the street to Supreme. That's what they say.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. I don't know if it's the street, but coming from somewhere into Supreme. But the reason why I wanted to reiterate this is that there are backfill seats, district leaders. And what that means is when someone is elevated into Supreme Court from within, there's a seat that is a backfill that they don't necessarily have to run for. They get elevated by the powers that be or the district leaders themselves. I just wanted to make a point of that. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. We'll take one more question. Leader Jones.
I just want to say that I had the pleasure and the honor of voting. She became judge. Initially, I had some concerns about voting for her.
You're breaking up. I'm sorry. I'm having trouble hearing
you. Can you hear me?
Now we can, yes.
Can you
hear me now?
Right now. Go ahead.
Yes, can you hear me?
Now I can.
Okay, so I said I had
the
honor and the pleasure of voting for you, casting my vote for you for the back seat when you did run. And I remember initially meeting with you and having some concerns about the process in terms of how it was. And after speaking with you directly myself, I felt that, even though the associations that you might have blinded me initially, but after meeting with you at the church, I kind of changed my thoughts and my opinions. And that's one of the reasons why I cast my vote for you, because I met the person, I heard you out, and you sounded very passionate about serving our community. So I thank you for that. I think that since you've been a judge, you've been consistent in terms of how you interacted with the people that supported you. And I really appreciate that you didn't get on the bench and change, and you still are involved in the community when we call. And I really appreciate the sincerity and the passion that you serve, that you show since you've been a judge. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I just want to reiterate that, I have brought with me to the bench something that I've gotten from inception from a child. My parents instilled in me that you not only you work hard and go get education, but that you respect others. And I got that even as I entered law school, the first day I entered law school, I have respect for my school. The first day in orientation, the first thing they said to us, which they didn't have to tell me, I already had it, was that you respect everyone, even the person who empties your garbage can, and you take that with you. And I have taken that with me through my entire career, something I instill in my own children. So anyone that comes in front of me in this courthouse will know that they were given the utmost respect. I don't allow in my courtroom disrespect. We all come in and we respect each other, and that's something that really works well. I've had problems where people come in and don't respect each other, attorneys, and I stop it right there, and they apologize and they realize that without that, we just can't move on.
Thank you. And
I
thank you
thank you
for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Our next candidate will be Carmen Pacheco.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for this
Hello.
opportunity to hear about me, because it's a lot of times when people hear about judicial candidates, they really don't know who they are. So thank you very much for even holding this. I'm a graduate of St. John's University School of Law. I graduated law school with honors and from law review. But let me back up a little bit. I'm a product of a Hispanic family. My father immigrated from Peru, and my mother is from Puerto Rico, and they met here in New York, and then they formed a household. At the outset, I was raised at the Gowanus houses here in Brooklyn, and then for the very early times, and it's in Assembly District 52, which I still live in. And I went and I grew up downtown, and I went to Catholic schools all my life, pretty much. And then I'm a product of the City University, Brooklyn College, where I met my business partner, Betty Lugo, and we created a tremendous friendship. Then I went to St. John's and she went on to Albany, but we had made a childhood promise that we were going to have a firm. We met at a philosophy of law class. And in that philosophy of law class, I remember sitting across the kitchen table from her, and I was drawing a picture, and she was studying. And I turned to her and I said, Betty, I said, this is going to be our law firm. And the law firm, the sketch of the law firm was a building with our names etched on the wall, and an atrium, and helicopters were coming onto that building. And I said, this is where we're going to have our law firm. And Betty turned to me, she says, are you crazy? How could two gals from Brooklyn, two Latinas, what do you forget it? You're just gonna fail, or nothing's gonna go on. And I said, no, we're gonna have our law firm here. So I go to St. John's and she goes to Albany, and I go to Wall Street, she goes to the DA's office. And then I ring and says, Betty, it's time for us to start this firm. She says, to do what? I said, no, we're gonna open up this law firm, and this is what we're gonna do. So we do. We open it up at One World Trade Center. And at One World Trade Center, our name was etched on the wall. When you turned the corner on the 29th floor, the corner offices, our name was etched on the wall. When you look at One World Trade Center, it had an atrium. And when you looked at One World Trade Center and you remember what it was, that was the only building that had a helicopter. So these two Latinas who dreamt over 30 years ago, which is the 30th anniversary of our law firm, started the first Hispanic woman-owned law firm on a dream. So one of the questions is, what are you proud of? This is one of the accomplishments was really breaking that glass ceiling, showing that we could show up and have things, that my law firm and myself, taking the Wall Street knowledge that I had, that I could help people and bridge that gap between the small business person, the regular person, and those who had the biggest wallets and they could fight. And we've been doing that. We took on defending churches against real estate developers and speculators where they were trying to take their properties, and we would make sure that those properties stayed in the hands of the churches as opposed to being stolen by the developers. We defended local people whose bodies were interred in garbage at the Cypress Hill Cemetery. And we took on the role of the Attorney General's office and fought that fight so that people could then be reinterred at the cost of the cemetery with dignity and respect. We've educated, or I've educated many of the homeowners about deed thefts, how to preserve their properties. If someone's building next door to you, you're entitled to get paid for that and also get your attorney's fees paid, in which we do. We don't let them dig into their pockets, because let me tell you, the biggest inequality in the judicial system is the economic inequalities that exist today. I've also defended documented, undocumented workers where many of the construction people or even the workforce, whether you're in a restaurant, et cetera, but they prioritize their profits over the safety of these people. So I've defended those. When somebody's been discriminated at the workplace, that's a no-go in my world. And I think that that's very important to maintain that. So your license as an attorney, I've been an attorney for almost 35 years, was very important because I've utilized it really for the community. I'm a community advocate, community lawyer, and I've taken on the hard cases. And sometimes you don't get paid for them because the smaller or the less fortunate, economically fortunate people just can't afford it. You know, I have big clients as well, but the purpose is to maintain that basic equality. Now, I've handled different types of cases across the board. I've been very successful. I have a reputation of being a very, very, very good lawyer. I'm passionate about the work that I do. I do have a love for the law. I believe that the law should always be maintained by the people with the ultimate integrity, and it should not be swayed whether you have somebody who's political in front of you or someone who's not. It should always be balanced and equal for everybody, because justice can only work and be balanced if people are all treated equally, no matter what happens. And you got to hold that. So, the reasons why I want to be a Supreme Court justice is because I think that, if should I be chosen or should I be permitted, I think that it's important that trust, the community trust, comes back to the court system. There are a lot of wonderful judges, and I see them here in this forum, that maintain the integrity of what is necessary and do what they need to do on the bench. But I think that we need more people like that, and more people like myself, who truly believe that the public trust has to be reinstated in the court system, so that people believe that access to justice is real. I believe in access to justice. I do it as a practitioner. And I think that in the courtroom, if you treat people with dignity, and you treat people with open arms, and that you bring in more interpreters into the court, and you really make it accessible, you can really, really, really bring back the public trust back to the court system where it deserves to be.
Thank you. Do I have any questions from leaders? And I see a hand up from Leader Bazil.
Hi, Carmen, nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you as well.
So my question is, in your time as an attorney, how has your perspective of law changed? And if so, what do you attribute it to?
The change over the years is what I've seen is that I have to go to the appellate court to get some justice. So I've been doing a lot of appeals. I think that there has to be a better balance. A lot of the judges, I think, are trying to clear their calendars, unfortunately. Not many, not all of them, but a good number of judges are trying to clean their calendars up. And I don't believe, and the change has been is that the cases have to go up and you have to challenge, the process. So, and if you have attorneys who are very well connected, you do have to push it up and then you see what happens. So that's what I've seen in the 35 years that I've been doing this. That's been the change. It's, it's time that the community is seen again. I think that big business is getting all of the accolades on the decisions, as opposed to really looking at what truly are the cases. And if you look at the foreclosure cases, the way things have changed in those cases, it's that they're taking the Uniform Commercial Code, which governs commercial paper, and they're letting the banks run amok. For example, if I'll give you an example, a check. I write a check in your name. Leader Sammy can't negotiate that, take it to the bank and deposit it in their account. But a bank can. A bank says if Wells Fargo has the note and they don't assign it and do a lot of things with it, and they take it and they say, well, this is mine. It's because they have it in their hands. So it's intended for them. I don't think so. So I don't know what's going on. The law is changing is because there really is I don't understand, there has to be a better system. And Judge Shack, may he rest in peace, was someone who used to fight that fight. So I've seen a lot of, things that need to be addressed in the legal system. Less political, more law.
Thank you. Any final questions? Thank you so much, Carmen, for joining us this evening.
No, thank you very much for the opportunity and the time.
Thank you. And last but certainly not least, Judge Craig Walker.
Well, thank you very much, and good evening to everyone. I really do appreciate the opportunity to be before you and just talk a little bit about myself. I'm a product of Brooklyn, having been born in the Clinton Hills section. My parents are both civil servants. My father started out as a taxi cab driver, then was a toll booth collector, and then worked his way up as a housing police officer here in Brooklyn. My mother used to be a legal secretary for A&S, and then she went to school and became a social worker. Parents moved us out to Long Island, grew up out there in Hempstead, went to Uniondale High School, and at the tender age of 16, which still trying to figure out how that happened, I graduated from high school. Wasn't too sure about what I wanted to do, but my father was very sure what he wanted me to do. And that was either be in school or get a job. So though I had jobs previously, my first one was a paper route. Always loved putting together those Sunday papers. I decided, well, let me try school. I was really done with school. I just kind of skated by, but I said, let me go to community college. And if anybody's going to community college, it's almost like 13th and 14th grade. At least it was out there at Nassau Community College. All my friends were there. We did nothing but party. And of course, my grades reflected that. My father told me he was no longer paying for C's, D's, and incompletes. And so I then went to work at Alexander's at the time at Roosevelt Field Mall. I was in the loading dock, and I remember working there for a few months, And the platform supervisor came to me. He was, I think, 22 or 23. And he said, you know, Craig, I hear you're doing really great work. And you keep it up 2-3 years, you could have my job. I said, wow, I could be platform supervisor. So the next day I went to the Navy recruiter. And although I was 17 years old, my father was all too happy to sign me up for the Navy. And I was off on a wonderful adventure. I was stationed out in California, in San Diego. I was an aircraft electrician. So I worked on all the aircraft that that the Navy had, F-14s, F-18s, helicopters. And I did that for 5 years. And then it was time for me to go to what we call sea duty. I was then stationed in Washington State, and I was assigned to the USS Constellation and the USS Ranger. When I was on the USS Ranger, we were deployed to the Gulf, and I participated in Operation Desert Storm, Desert Shield, and our ship was the first ship that launched sorties against Saddam Hussein at the time. That deployment lasted 9 months. It was difficult, but it taught me a lot. And at the tender age of 22, I was actually a night shift supervisor, supervising younger sailors under me. After that deployment, I then had an opportunity to become a naval instructor. And I went back to San Diego, and I was an instructor for the next 4 years. It was during that time that I said, you know what, I really need to do something. And I decided I wanted to go back to school. And so I took night classes and weekend classes while I was teaching Navy and Marine personnel during the day. I was earning my associates and my bachelor's at night. But there was always something gnawing in me, which was I wanted to be an attorney. Now, nobody in my family was an attorney. No one ever went to law school, but I was hooked on shows like The Practice and LA Law. And I said, you know what, I can do that. So I went ahead and I applied for law schools all out on the East Coast because I wanted to come back home and practice in New York. And I settled on Hofstra. And I went through Hofstra, and I had an opportunity in my third year to be part of a legal clinic, which was the housing clinic. That gave us an opportunity to act as real lawyers. You know, we showed up in court, obviously with actual attorneys, but we got to argue cases there. And I remember this one case specifically where we were able to save a tenement that they wanted to knock down because they wanted to expand a parking lot there in downtown Hempstead. Now, of course, who was in that tenement? All, you know, Hispanics, Latinos, some legal, probably most illegal. A lot could not speak the language. We ended up saving that tenement. It is still there today. And guess what? That parking lot is still never full. So that drew me to going into housing court. So when I got out of law school, I started practicing landlord-tenant for tenants and landlords. I did that for about 2 years. And then I was in Queens Civil Court. And I remember a judge calling me up to the bench. Her name is Judge Pam Jackman Brown. And she said, Mr. Walker, are you looking? I said, Judge, I'm always looking. And so she told me about a judge who was looking for a court attorney. That judge happened to be here in Brooklyn. I knew nothing about it, but I applied. She hired me. She told me sometime later that she had already hired someone else, where she thought about hiring someone else, but after meeting me, she decided to hire me. So I sat with her in civil court, and she eventually went up to Supreme. And so I was in Supreme Court with her as well. I never thought about being a judge. I never thought I could be a judge. There was nothing there that told me I could be a judge. But it was litigants, it was attorneys who would be before me as I was trying to settle their cases that asked me, when was I running? when was I going to be a judge? And that was the first time that I actually thought about it. And so when the opportunity came to run, I ran in 2012 for an open countywide seat, and I won. I, of course, was put directly into criminal court, like most of the civil court judges here in Brooklyn. And I, knew nothing about criminal law except for what I learned in law school. But I put my nose to the grindstone because it was important to me to make sure that I did not harm anyone. It's almost like a doctor, right? Do no harm. Because I had the power at that time to take away somebody's liberty. And I knew that just locking someone up for maybe 2 or 3 days could mean they could lose their job, they might lose their apartment, they can't go to work. I mean, so these were things that stayed in my mind. But one of the things that attorneys who knew that I was a veteran, when they were before me in arraignments, they would always introduce their client, if their client was a veteran, say, Judge, I just want to let you know my client's a veteran, because they felt that I would understand, what was going on with them. And they would ask me, can I send their client to Veterans Court? Well, the unfortunate part was, unless they had committed a felony, there was no misdemeanor treatment court for veterans. I just didn't understand that, because the majority of the veterans who were coming through the court were coming through for low-level crimes of poverty, crimes of being under substance abuse, mental issues. And so just 2 years on the bench, I went to my supervising judge and I said, what can we do about getting a veterans treatment court for these veterans who are committing low-level crimes? And he told me, he said, well, Craig, if you can make it happen, I'm all the way behind you. So we went ahead, I got a grant writer. Took us about 1.5 years of hard work, but we got it off the ground. And in November 2015, we started the very first Brooklyn Misdemeanor Veterans Treatment Court. It was the first misdemeanor veterans treatment court of its kind in New York State. All the other veterans treatment courts either dealt with felonies or felonies and misdemeanors, but there were none that just dealt with misdemeanors. And it's still going strong to this day. I think based upon that and my philosophy of alternatives to incarceration, sitting in the drug treatment courts, the mental health courts, when Ken Thompson became the DA here, he looked to model a youth court based upon a model that was in California. They called it the young adult part. So it was for 16 to 24-year-olds who were charged with misdemeanors and low-level crimes. It was the biggest part in the criminal court. He asked that I be the presiding judge there. And so I was the first judge in that part. I guess based upon how well I was doing with that, with the raise the age legislation went into effect, and then the new youth part came into effect in Supreme Court, and I applied for that. I was granted the opportunity to be the presiding judge there. And I've been the presiding judge in the youth part now in Brooklyn Supreme since August 2018. So next month makes 3 years I've been doing that. It's a labor of love. It's a difficult part. I wake up every morning, I turn on the news to see what has transpired over the night, what shots have happened, who's been assaulted, because I get all the 14 to 17-year-olds who are charged with felonies, violent and nonviolent crimes here in Brooklyn. I also sit as a hybrid family court judge, because a lot of these cases end up going to family court, and I help make a determination which of those cases should go there. So pretty much I have sat in almost every single court, having been in housing, civil supreme, and lower criminal, and now criminal supreme. So since I've been doing this for 3 years, I really do believe that I have the knowledge, the experience to go to that next level, to be a full supreme. I also think about that because as an acting Supreme Court justice, that's an appointed position. And you know what they say, something that's given can be taken away. And sometimes I have to make some very difficult decisions, some decisions that some people may not like. some decisions that may get me in the paper, which I don't care about. But I don't want it to be that something's hanging over my head that I have to think about, which is going to prevent me from making the right decision, which is what I want to do every day. So again, I thank you all for taking the time out to listen to me, to invite me, and I do hope that you have some questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from leaders? I just have one question. I noticed in your questionnaire, you listed, or you stated, that judges should have an active role in judicial activism, and I found that really interesting to hear, because I don't think many judges have said that, and but I think particularly when it comes to criminal court, and just hearing you speak, I think, you know, it seems you speak very passionately about the work that you do. So I guess it's not so much a question, but just a comment that you know, considering, you know, I've worked for over 20 years with young people, many of them who have been involved in the court system. So I guess it's just affirming to hear that, you know, you take that very seriously. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. It's important. Again, these positions that we have, we were elected to these positions by the people here. They were not gifted to us. And I believe it's a crime to not utilize the position to its full potential. I never choose the easy route. It would have been very easy for me to do my 2 years in criminal court and then go back to civil court with what I knew, with what I was comfortable with. I chose to stay in criminal court because I knew that I could make a difference here. I think it's very important, especially with the people who come through criminal court, to see me there on the bench, to have a sense of fairness, that they know or they feel that they're going to have somebody who is going to look at the facts, who's going to hear them. And when I'm there with the kids, I talk directly to the kids. I usually don't want to hear from the attorneys. I want to find out what's going on with them. I always make sure that there's a family member that's there. I encourage that the family is there as well, because it's important for these parents to know what's going on with their kids. But I talk to the kids. I ask them about school. I ask them about goals. You know, I have kids who were charged with attempted murder, who were able to successfully complete programs, and now A, have no criminal record, and B, are in college. You know, I feel that maybe if I wasn't there, if it might have been someone else, that kid might not have had that same chance. I think it's very important that these kids have to show that we have to look beyond the charges. You know, the charges are the charges, and a lot of them are serious, they're egregious, but the kids are very honest. They'll let you know, Judge, I'm in a gang, but I'm not in the gang because I want to be in the gang. I'm in the gang because I have to be in the gang. Or Judge, I had the gun, but I had the gun because if I didn't have the gun and the other guy had the gun, then I would be the one who's dead. I mean, we talk about PTSD with the military when we send them overseas, but they're trained to handle weapons. They're trained to be under fire. These kids are in a war zone every day. They're seeing friends shot right next to them. They're dodging bullets. You can't tell me these kids aren't suffering from a form of PTSD. So I take a holistic approach in my part. It's a very user active part. And I encourage everyone to be an active participant. So again, thank you.
Thank you. And we're at time. So thank you, Judge Walker. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
So thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. That concludes our forum. We appreciate those for joining us. This video will live on the internet in perpetuity. And stay tuned for some future events that we'll be planning. And again, thank you so much for everyone for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Have
everybody.
a good night.
Right.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.